right, perfect. So right before we break for lunch, we're going to break away from the product too, and we're going to talk about how a lot of you are agencies are managing campaigns for other folks. You may be managing it for your own business as well. So Jack is one of our top contributors in the AdWords community, and he's got some really great tips. I've taken a sneak peek. He's got some really great tips that I think everyone can kind of glean some insight from. So let's welcome Jack.
I'm the guy who everyone wants to shut up before lunch, right? So I'm going to try not to take too long. But if you're going to heckle me, no swearing because it's on Hangout, so unlucky. I don't even know which screen to look at. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I'm doing this all the time, don't worry about it. It's a pleasure to be here, and I've been doing a lot of traveling and speaking for my company recently. I am very tired, so I'll try and put a bit of energy into it. But actually, I feel more like this is private speaking, right? Because most of you guys, in one way or another, we all do the same thing. We either manage campaigns, we take part in forums. So when I was picking my topic, I kind of just thought, well, there's some technical gurus and wizards talking over these 2 days. Like my fellow TC John, he's probably going to blow us all away with things that most of us don't know. And the engineers themselves. So I thought, why not take a step back and look at, a slightly different angle on being successful in PPC. And it's not all about knowing which buttons to press or which scripts to use. So, that's why I picked my topic today, as cheesy as it sounds. Very briefly about me, because I know nobody's really interested in that. We just want to get on to the good stuff. I am obsessed with pizza. I have it at least 4 times a week. It really doesn't help my life or my weight, but it's what keeps me going on those late nights when I'm doing all this PPC work. And been lucky enough to be a TC since 2009. Can't really believe that in 5 years. It's gone by in a flash. And I hope it keeps going for everyone for a very long time. It's a great program. And obviously everyone in some way or another is involved with the communities here. And I think we all get a lot of value from it for our businesses and for our personal development. So let's all keep that going. So I'm co-founder of a PPC production company, really, which is a bit of a weird expression. We're essentially a back-end team. We don't do any front-end sales work. So basically a back-end team of geeks who enjoy doing what we do. We have offices now in 3 places in North America, in Europe, and Asia. Very proud of that. Happy to, give opportunities to people, and more importantly, I want to share some things with you today so that you can get some value from it for your own careers and agencies. Before I carry on, can anyone raise your hand if you actually do PPC on a daily or weekly basis? Just so I have an idea. All right, the vast majority. Now, can you tell me? Keep your hand up or put your hand up if you work for somebody else, i.e. you're not self-employed. Okay, so maybe 2/3. Cool. That helped me. Good, because that's what it's kind of what this is about. It'd be pointless if you weren't. So just to be absolutely clear, this is not about being the best. I don't believe there is anything that you can classify as the best, and anyone who thinks they are the best, it's on live stream, so I can't say, but I think you know what I think about them. It's not supposed to be patronizing. It's just I've spent 9 years doing PPC, which again has gone by in a flash, and I've made some painful mistakes along the way. But ultimately, I've now got to where I want to be in managing my own business. And whatever your goals are, I just hope that I can convey something which will help you achieve them. As well as some theoretical things, I've got some pretty cool, useful tips and tools that I use every day in my life, and I've used them for years and years. So I'm going to share them with you as well. There's probably a lot of agency people in here. I've spent 4 years agency side, and I know it's a brutal environment, and there's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of infighting and fighting against other agencies for business and everything like that. And that's fine. I mean, I think Google wants a competitive partner environment. Why wouldn't they? Because it drives us all to give better service to clients. But I think as well, in the whole digital marketing world, we all have this tendency to be the best or be better than the guy next to us. And I think we should just leave that to the agencies to do against each other. And everyone in this room, almost everyone, 99% raised their hands when I said who does PPC. And we are not here to compete against each other. When we're on the forum, we're not competing against each other for the best answers. We're here to try and help each other. Because if we do that, the net result will be best. If you think of Formula One teams, the teammates, they have to share data with each other, so therefore the team will succeed. Or if you even think about some of the great Olympic athletes, Usain Bolt, and I think they train together. The two fastest men in the world for Jamaica, they're running against each other for the 100-meter title, but they trained together because they knew they could push each other further and further and further and go beyond their own limits of what they thought was achievable. So I think that's my mindset, and so that's why I'm sharing these things with you today. And realistically, the only time you're competing against another PPC person is for a promotion or some sort of award, right? So most of the time, day to day, we need to help each other. So the very obvious tip number one, and don't worry, they get a bit more useful, is to socialize. That's why you're all here today. It's probably just cool to go to Google as well, for those of you who haven't been before. But in the end of the day, we're probably going to learn more or just as much from our networking breaks and dinner tonight than we are from people standing up here telling us things. That's just the way it is. You soak up more when you're having natural conversation. So as much as I can emphasize that point, you have to socialize, and you will learn an incredible amount. My career really erupted for me when I started being involved in the forum, for lots of different reasons, but mainly because I was just picking up things which I never would have otherwise learned. It's not in the guides, it's not in the books, my manager wasn't going to teach me it. And a lot of the learnings are actually in the questions. It's not even in people's answers. It's in a real advertiser, real life world. They're asking these questions and you're thinking, how did they even get to that situation? But it makes you think about it. And half the time you have to go and Google. You have to go and Google the answer yourself before you can give one, right? So I'd highly recommend doing as much as you can on these forums and things like that. And it's not also just about posting. I haven't posted very much recently, but it's not just about posting. There's so much more to it. And Scott, the TC from the UK, he does these quiz things, which seem very good. And it's a different way for him to help people. And of course, you can do blog posts and all that kind of thing as well. Additionally, the conferences out with Google, they are incredible. I'm not one for general conferences like SMX or anything like that, because I think they're too generalized for SEO or whatever. And I'm just not interested in that. I don't specialize in that, and I don't pretend to. So I like going to PPC only conferences, like HeroConf. I don't know if anyone's been to there or heard of that, but Hannafin Marketing, the people behind ppchero.com, you must have seen that blog, most of you. They started putting this conference on a few years ago, and it snowballed into this 500 attendee thing this year in Texas. And it's the best conference I've ever been to. That was 2 months ago. Learned an incredible amount from a lot of very intelligent speakers. And again, the networking. So, if you're working for other people, that's why I asked. You've got to push your employers to send you to Hero Conference and whatever else you think is relevant and interesting to your aspirations. And also, they're a little bit cringeworthy sometimes, but there's a lot of local groups on LinkedIn, for example, of like SEOs in Glasgow, where I'm from, or PPC pros in Portsmouth, and a lot of it is self-promotion. But yet again, if there's a group of people that are in there contributing with their own group in the local region, and they have the monthly meetup for some beers and sharing tips, what's the harm in really going along and seeing what you can learn, right? So that's number one. Number two, now something, this is, 9 years of PPC for me, and I'm quite ashamed of some of the things I'm sharing with you, only so that you don't make the same mistakes, if you are indeed making them. If you're not, well done. Conversion, for the first 5 years of my career, I had the blinkers on, man. I was just thinking about my quality scores and how good I was at selecting keywords and how amazing I was at writing ads and all this kind of thing, and utilizing site links and whatever else came along. And I almost had this click and run attitude where I'm just a PPC guy. Don't talk to me about conversion and it's not converting well and the website is your problem to fix. I'm doing my job, right? So it's very easy to think like that as a technical specialist in a PPC campaign. But ultimately, that was fairly myopic of me, and I think, thinking back, I can't really believe I got away with 5 years into the PPC without ever having built a landing page myself. It's ridiculous, really. And conversion rate optimization is something that is becoming more widespread and adopted. And there's all these self-serve platforms like Fundance or any other number that you could list. And I'm not a designer. I have no design skills whatsoever, but I can build a perfectly good looking landing page now because of these solutions out there. So they're for you all to use and embrace. So don't just think about traffic if you do. And ultimately, it's going to help you have happier clients and longer relationships, and ultimately make more money for your employers or for yourself, because everybody's a winner if the conversion rate is better from your PPC campaigns. In reality, not just in theory, what does that mean? Well, there's some pretty cool tools that I use on a daily basis. I'm pretty sure you all have heard of these that I'm listing. Obviously, hook up your analytics to your AdWords if you haven't already, as a religious thing. But also, I've used Crazy Ad for probably 5 years. Does anyone put your hand up if you use Crazy Ad? Quite a lot of people, that's great. And they're constantly innovating their platform. They're coming out with this mobile segments now and different traffic sources and everything like that. And it's much more useful than it used to be a gimmick. And now it's actually practically useful for information to implement optimization on landing pages. Something I'm also really keen on is user testing, like focus groups of your ideas. You can go into things like usertesting.com, select 5 users on whatever device and location you want them from, and give them a scenario to basically try and break your landing page or your website. And the feedback you get from that is great. And a bit more on that later. So I hope that point is hit home, because it's probably my most important, to be honest, and my biggest learning anyway over the last couple of years. And the other thing is, apart from actually making a better PPC campaign, you can commercialize it. So it's no longer just PPC management fees. It's landing page fees, posting fees, landing page change fees, right? It's all linked. But you wouldn't be charging those fees if it wasn't for the best of the client, because you're spending time optimizing the conversion of their campaign. Don't chase the shinies. I've never done it, just because generally I'm not enamored by shiny objects or new things. I'm kind of I don't like change, and I enjoy working with what I know how to work. But I appreciate that when Google release fancy new extension or whatever it might be, or a new campaign type, it's tempting to dive in there and start spending your client's dollars on it. Ultimately, I don't really think that's a great idea. I'm actually still a little bit hesitant with new shopping campaigns. Not because I don't think they're great, just because I want to make sure my company fully understands how to get every inch of value out of them before we abandon our existing practices with PLA campaigns. That might sound ridiculous, but that's the way I operate. I'm safety first, I'm pessimistic, I'm good. So, that's my advice. Feel free to adopt them, test them carefully. We all know Google testing rather aggressively, and that's fine, but ultimately, I'm not embarrassed to say that I'm not fully confident with shopping campaigns yet, because I haven't had time to study them or study the results of them from the tests that I'm running. And nor should you be. If your clients are reading posts and saying, why hasn't my campaign upgraded yet? Why haven't you got this fancy new extension when I'm Googling my own ads? You tell them it's because you're studying the market reaction, because you're waiting to see what happens. It took me until just before Google forced us to go to enhanced campaigns in July 2013 before I actually switched over all my clients' accounts. Just because I wanted to get every inch of available data during the crossover period so that I could actually best inform my strategy going forward with enhanced campaigns, for example. When they came out in February, I didn't have a clue what they were until John wrote a blog post about them on the forum. So I certainly wasn't going to start using them in February and March until I fully got them. So from that point onwards, whenever you're comfortable, scale up. And of course, it's no harm to show your clients that you're innovating by testing in isolated amounts of money or whatever. But yeah, don't get carried away by spending money on these new things until you understand. Something that's really important to me, and this is probably more of a how you handle yourself in business point of view. Anyone that's worked with me knows I'm brutally honest, and not always the softest on feelings, but I'm the same way with myself as I am with other people. I think integrity is probably the thing people value most in anyone, especially clients in their suppliers, which is effectively what we all are, or partners. So in the end of the day, you have to be honest with yourself. You know, when you're going for a job or a promotion or setting your fees, is it truly worth that much? Do you really deserve that? Equally, when you screwed up or messed up, you know, did you do everything you could to fix it? And equally, I know this happens to every single one of you in this room. When a client reports a problem, are you sending a holding response, or are you truly doing everything you can to fix it? You know, in other words, the client says, "Here's my problem." Have you just added one negative keyword and hope that it goes away, or are you actually putting all of your efforts into identifying what it is and fixing it, as opposed to just trying to clear your inbox? And that, for me, you have to be honest with yourself and don't take the shortcut, because it's just going to come back and bite you in the ass. Be honest with your clients. I mean, I know it's difficult, especially when you work in the agency world and you get pressures from your management and your account management team. And you know, we do work in partly SEOs call it black art or black magic, whatever you want to call it. There's an element of mystique to what we do, right? The business owners don't really get it, or they try to do it. They've wasted loads of money, so they think we're some sort of magicians because we can spend it properly on their behalf. And while that's great, and you do want to keep up that kind of, you know, barrier, because it's your intellectual property that you're selling at the end of the day when you're doing these services, I think it's also important to be open with clients, you know, and if there is ever an issue, don't hide the truth. You know, you might position it in a professional way, you know, optimize it. But, you know, if you made a mistake, you made a mistake. I've called clients that spend $1 million a year plus, and I said, "I'm really sorry, Steve," and I pressed the wrong button. And they were like, "Jack, you know, in the end of the day, who's going to beat on a puppy, right? The average puppy, you know, when they unscroll all the toilet paper, you can't beat it with a stick. You might be pissed off with them, but you're not going to beat them, right?" So that's the approach I've always taken, and it's very disarming. Honesty is incredibly disarming, because what can someone say when you've already given them all of the answers, right? So, and then finally, you know, the last couple of points here, I think the same logic applies. You get the point I'm making by now, but nobody likes someone in the team who doesn't take accountability for their actions. I know a lot of agencies rotate account managers on accounts to keep things fresh. So there are instances where your actions can impact your colleagues directly and sometimes negatively, and it's all just about being honest and you know, working towards fixing it. But you can only do that when you've got a clear conscience, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean be soft. Be brutal if you have to be, but be honest. Number 5. I suppose just when I was looking back, was the various steps towards becoming a business owner. The thing I realized reluctantly is I had a really good mentor. I didn't even appreciate him for 3 years that I had him. His name is Richard Kelly, and he took me on when I was really quite young, younger than most people would ever be given an opportunity, in an agency, one of Glasgow's biggest agencies, to be a PPC expert or manager. And he rode me like a horse. Like, he was really, really hard on me. I hated him so much during that time. But when I look back, it was all valuable lessons. And it doesn't matter what stage of your career you're at, right? If you're sat here thinking, "I've been doing it for 10 years, I don't need a mentor," yes, you do. Because it doesn't matter what you do or in what way you need a mentor. I mean, I'm now a business owner, right? So I've got a business partner who's done business for 30 years longer than me, and he's got several, you know, multi-million-dollar companies. I can learn a hell of a lot from him about how to run a PPC company, which is very different to having a mentor for how to do PPC campaigns. So I think whatever stage I'm ever at, I will always look for that person. And sometimes it's subconscious. Sometimes you'll reach out to these people and look for help. And you don't necessarily have to have a mentor that you suck up to and report to all the time. You just have to have, or try to have, that figure who you absorb from and who you go to when you have difficulties, because you can trust their guidance, even if it's not soft or gentle or what you want to hear. So you may be thinking, well, how am I going to find a mentor? You know, for me, it just happened to be a boss that recruited me, and I didn't even realize it was happening for 3 years, like I say. In other situations, I guess you could seek out a mentor. You know, find a senior figure in your office or in the forums you participate in or your social circles, parent, it doesn't really matter who it is, it's just someone to go to and rely on in times of difficulty. And as I say, you may have one and not even know it. And if you think now about the people you actually automatically want to ask a question to when you have a problem, you probably do kind of have a mentor. And maybe it's just about thinking, how can you extract more from that relationship and get more from them. That said, nobody likes a needy puppy, so don't always be demanding their attention or looking for things from them. And certainly, I do remember, like I said at the start of this section, I remember feeling a lot of rage when he was leaning over my shoulder telling me I was making mistakes. But ultimately, I know it's for my own good. And so, try and suppress that rage when they're annoying you or telling you you're doing things wrong. So, number 6 is actually one of my favorites, and it's maybe a little bit subjective, but something I've learned over the years, and again, this is more applicable to those of you who work with agencies, for agencies with clients, is put stats first and your opinions second. All right? We all think we have the best logic in the world, and I'm sure we all do, respectively. But at the end of the day, these people who we're targeting, we don't know who they are. We don't know who's actually searching these keywords or browsing these websites that we're targeting. So we don't actually know how they're going to behave. We know how they might do on average. We know how they might usually respond to a certain ad or strategy or whatever tactics you employ. But at the end of the day, there's just no guarantees in our line of work. Sometimes things don't work inexplicably. The guy mentioned during the first presentation, it's happened to me a few times and I've been stung, is when you take over an account and it is just a pile of dog food. It's terrible, it's bad structure, broad matches, no negatives, every misdemeanor you could imagine. So I diligently put it into a new Google account, I restructure it efficiently, I use the right match types, change the landing pages, and it tanks. Absolutely tanks. And I'm thinking, well, I've just charged a massive setup fee for this. I've convinced the client that I'm the expert, and this has happened to me. And that still happens. It happens to me probably once a month. Thanks, John. But the point is, I've actually learned to stop being so ardent about my strategy and theory. It's something I've formalized my own idea of how it should be done. But obviously, the users or Google are telling me that's not the case all of the time. Equally, it's a great buffer for when clients are challenging your thinking. They're saying, what on earth are you doing? Why are you doing that ad? What's that supposed to say? What's that landing page all about? You're saying, look, take a step back. It's not about what you think. It's not about what I think. It's about what the stats say, right? So it's a great buffer for, helping you with clients who question your decisions, but also, just bear it in mind with your own decisions as well. Don't always just be so tunnel visioned about your theory, because it can cause you some issues. And within that as well, panic optimization. Has anyone ever panic optimized an AdWords account? Like something's gone terribly wrong. Right, there's one. There's one on this guy in the room too. Thank you. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? So it happens. The client calls you going mental. Something's gone wrong, or something's perceived to have gone wrong. It's Friday afternoon. You're already thinking about going for a beer, and you have to deal with it, right? So, and I don't know about anyone else, but when I read an email that's really negative or get a call, it's like my heart jumps, I get a rush of blood to the head, and I start sweating. Like, that happens to me. Still happens to me. And I don't think that's unnatural, but what I've learned is not to touch the AdWords account until I feel like a normal human being again. Because your judgment when you're panicked or you're stressed is poor. And with a clear mind, even if you delay it for 24 hours, you're going to make a better decision on what you have to do to fix the account. And so that's just a very important point. And avoid complacency. I mean, you probably all read these points by now. I couldn't figure out using Google Docs how to animate the points coming in. Anyone watch Game of Thrones? Right? King Joffrey, what an ass. I'm so glad he got poisoned. Right? Nobody likes these guys. Oh, come on, this is old news. Come on, man. That's like 3 months old. I'm not going to apologise for that spoiler. But everybody wanted to kill him in Game of Thrones because he was on the top and he was being very complacent and abusing his power and his abilities and his knowledge. And nobody likes a person like that because it always has a negative effect. So, and one of the beauties of working in what we do is, this is, 9 years of PPC for me, and I've never been more scared of the thing. Like, I feel like I know less now than I did comparatively 5 years ago, because they keep bringing out all these damn updates, and I can't keep up with them. My clients are sending me links to blogs and things like that, saying, are we doing this, are we doing that? And it's difficult, but it's also wonderful, because it keeps you fresh, and it means you should avoid complacency, because no matter how good you think you are at this game, there's always something new that's going to challenge you that you may find difficult. And for any probably British people more, the story of the hare and the tortoise is obviously the hare got a bit complacent and carried away. Laptop's decided it's lunchtime. So.
Cocoa.
So anyway, avoid that. I can't remember what my next slide was. I'm just going to stall.
Make mistakes.
Mistakes, thank you. So, tip number 7, don't be scared to make mistakes. In the end of the day, I believe if you're not making mistakes, you're not pushing hard enough. I'm a big fan of Formula 1, so I keep going back to the example. So, when they're in their practices before the actual race starts, they're throwing that car around every corner, they're pushing the absolute barriers, and they don't really mind if they spin off, because they know next time they go around the lap, exactly how far they can push, right? So I don't think there's any issue with that. I encourage my team members and colleagues and anyone I work with to push the boundaries of what they think is possible and risk making mistakes. I'm not saying deliberately make mistakes, but do things which might not have the best outcome all the time, because you never know, you might get a good outcome that you're otherwise too scared to pursue. Now for you in practicality, what does that mean? It's not just a fluffy piece of advice. It's what kind of campaign or ad do you actively avoid selling or implementing because you're scared of it? Is it WAP ads? Is it display? Is it dynamic remarketing, which you've always learned about? There will be something in PPC that you're scared of. There is for me. And it's just a case of taking it on, using all the right logic and theory that you can, and hoping that the outcome eventually is good. I always use Rovio's example. Everybody in this room must know the Angry Birds game you get on your phone, right? Or now, every kind of device under the planet. And that was actually their 66th app before they were successful. In other words, they put all that money into developing 65, which completely tanked and didn't get anywhere on the iTunes chart, but perseverance, right? And they weren't scared to make mistakes. So when I look at it with my team members or colleagues or even myself, if you make the same mistake once on that note, it doesn't really matter. As long as you fix it and you learn from it and move on, great. Same mistake twice, oh, not great, but okay, just try not to do it again. Step 3, you really shouldn't be doing PPC if you make the same mistake 3 times. The biggest example I could ever give you of this, in 2007 I was managing a campaign for one of the UK's biggest energy suppliers. I can't say who it is because it's being streamed, and I accidentally targeted the campaign to America because that's what AdWords editor defaulted to back then. And I launched it in 2 weeks, didn't have a clue why I wasn't getting enough impressions, and that was entirely my mistake. I have never launched a campaign in my life again, probably 200 or 300 since, without triple checking the location targeting. It happens, don't be scared of it, but learn from it. So, number 8. Honestly, I probably add a tool to my armor every year, realistically, given the amount of tools we actually need, which isn't that many. And these are my favorites. I think we have a habit as PPC experts to get stuck into our own methods and reasons for doing things in a certain way. And it's very hard to change them. And certainly one of the things in the younger or earlier part of my career was I tried to do everything manually on spreadsheets all the time. And my boss would lean over my shoulder and show me this macro that does it 10 times faster, but I was like, no, I'll do it my own way. Eventually, I've learned to embrace, I actually hunt these tools now. I look for them, I Google them, I ask my colleagues and my peers, is there a tool that can do this, because it's a pain in the arse. If you don't already use any of these, I highly recommend that you do, or another brand of the same thing. I do a lot of international work, and I just use xe.com because it's quick to type, and it's perfectly reliable for converting currencies. SEO Book's keyword list generator. In the interests of the search conference, I decided not to put all of the URLs here, so you're going to have to Google it. But that is a fantastic bit of kit, and I know there's various new ones coming out, and Google even kind of copied it or made a slightly similar version in the toolkit now. But that's great, for actually, especially e-commerce campaigns or ones with loads of different products and services that would otherwise take you hours to do find and replace in Excel or editor. When you're setting up a campaign, you can actually mix, up to 5 groups of keywords, whether it's prefixes, suffixes, main keywords, or loads of different colors and then loads of different product types. Whatever it is, it's great for multiplying groups of keywords. And I've used that probably my entire career, as far as I can remember anyway. And it's still free to this day. I can't believe it is, but they must make good AdSense revenue off of it. And it really is a lifesaver. The URL builder as well, don't forget to use that for your Bing campaigns or your Facebook ad campaigns or your email marketing campaigns. It's a really handy thing to show the value of your overall efforts. Percentage change calculator, I don't know how many of you do manual reports for your clients or even for internal purposes, but quite often I find myself trying to figure out, okay, last month I had 10 conversions, this month I had 20, what's the percentage uplift? That's an easy example, but when you're dealing with 2 or 3 decimal points, it becomes a little bit more tricky to do, for click-through rates and conversion rates. So I use this all the time, daily. Equally, CPM calculator, clicks.com. Don't know how much display you guys do, but bizarrely, I think it maybe comes down to there's less transparency with display in terms of forecasting campaigns. So as soon as you actually kick off, from your first week of data, a lot of my clients ask me, well, what's our anticipated CPM going to be? What's our anticipated exposure going to be? And this tool is great. There's basically 3 variables that you can put in, and if you're missing one of them, it will work out the other for you. So if you have your impressions and your cost per click, it will tell you your cost per impression, etc. Time difference calculator as well. I do a lot of international work, so Happy Zebra has lots of intuitive options for working out time differences. So I use them. I've used them all for a very long time. I encourage you to do so if you have any similar such needs. Call tracking. This is almost as bad a confession as conversion rate optimization for me. I didn't do any call tracking for 5 years doing PPC. I don't know about you guys. Hands up if you use call tracking at the moment. That's only 50% of the room. Call tracking is essential to the measurement and optimization of PPC campaigns. Fact. I could move on from this slide, but I have a few more tips. Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, I was at, my company has a global conference every year, and Google spoke at it last year. And the guy from Google said, for local businesses in North America, 75% of leads come from the phone, right? And we're all obsessing over leads that come from online forums and sales. That's quite ridiculous. All this conversion data is over here, and we're all, scrutinizing this tiny little pile of data, which is completely stupid and a really inefficient way to manage PPC campaigns. So I think you get the message of why it's important. And there are various different levels of call tracking for those of you that don't use it. It's available in pretty much every country in one way or another, some more advanced than others, and some are global. We have 2 global partners for call tracking. In the end of the day, at the bare minimum, you want to track where did the click come from and did they call. And most call tracking software can do that, otherwise it's not call tracking software. You can get a bit more advanced. You can track calls at a keyword level, and also whether return visitor, whether repeat visitor, did they call 7 days after visiting the website, and everything like that. So it's up to you how fancy you want to be about it, but in the end of the day, at least count all of the conversions. And then it's up to you if you take it down to a keyword level. So that's a critically important point that I wanted to share with you guys, and I'm really happy that I picked this topic because half the room didn't raise their hand there. So if there's one lesson you can take away, please go and look at a call tracking provider. Typically, In the US, it's pennies for us. It's like £10 a month. In the UK, it's inexplicably more expensive. If anyone has good experience with a cheap UK call tracking provider, please tell me, because it's costing us a fortune. But I'll pay for it because it's essential to retaining our clients and succeeding. So it's really simple as well. I mean, we're all used to implementing codes for tracking or remarketing. It's the exact same thing. For 99% of providers, all you have to do is install a piece of JavaScript on their website. It will detect where the user came from. It will change the phone number to a proxy number, and then you get the online portal for tracking calls. And we use a Quizio, which pulls in the AdWords data and the call data into one place. That's optional. So, and the other thing about the cost is if you don't want to pay for it out of your own pocket, charge it to the client. That's what we do. We make a loss on the UK call tracking, but you know, it all balances out, and they see the value in it. And some call tracking, just to finish on this point, actually gives you information about SEO traffic and direct traffic as well. So it's not just a PPC benefit. The client loves getting all that other data and recording as well, by the way. That's the final point on this. Clients will often challenge you as to the quality of the campaign, or they might say we're not getting enough leads, or we're not getting enough sales. And sometimes that's the case. But I read somewhere, I don't know if Google can verify this, the average ROI for an AdWords campaign is $2 for every $1 spent. And so, you know, more often than not, if the client is telling you they're getting nothing back from the campaign, especially if it's run by one of us awesome optimizers, it's pretty unlikely to be true. So therefore, if you're listening to the calls that are coming from their campaign, and you heard them close a deal or whatever, then it gives you a bit extra support and ammunition. And actually, it can be the case they just don't realize where the call came from. Right? So they might say, oh, I'm not getting any sales. And you might say, oh, you booked a wedding last week, the PPC campaign. And I'll go, oh, great, that's fantastic. I'll give you twice the budget. That happens. I'm not joking. So there you go. So my last tip before we count down to lunchtime. I've touched on this. And regardless of how brilliantly you are technically, what it all comes down to is mannerism, as far as I can work out in being successful with PPC. And you know, I don't know what your goals are, whether they're to grow your business or to get a promotion or to start your own business, but I really have found that these values that I put on the screen, they are what have enabled me to do what I want to do, frankly. And it's got nothing to do with how much PPC knowledge I do or do not have. It's as simple as that. So I've touched on integrity, but I think something people value almost as much as that, or even more of that, is responsiveness. You know, yet again, when you have an issue which brings down the red mist or panics you, you don't have to have a solution right then, but you have to acknowledge the client's got a problem. And it's the communication and responsiveness to such PPC problems with clients that's actually going to help you maintain those relationships and grow the accounts. So, you know, it's about working with people. So if you're a good person, people are going to work with you more often and give you more money. Would be my broad assertion. So, conclusion. What can you take away from my half an hour of rambling? I hope that it helps you clarify what you actually want to do. It was always very clear for me, probably after 5 years, that I wanted to run my own PPC business. But I also acknowledged I needed more experience, agency side and client side, before I did that. So whatever your goals are, I hope that this information helps you go away and accelerate those or achieve those. In the end of the day, I hope you do take some learnings from my mistakes, such as ignoring conversion optimization and call tracking for so long. And do let me know if you have any questions that I can share with you on the details of those things. And just do what you can to make the best out of your own situation. Yeah, again, it's not a competition. We're all here to learn from each other, and if we do that, we'll all grow collectively and help keep growing the fantastic AdWords community as well. So, go ahead, have fun, be successful, and enjoy lunch.
Thanks, Jack. That was great. I love the stats first, opinion second. Yeah. That's my favorite. So.